Joining me now is the author of that piece, The Atlantic's Yoni Applebaum, and our panel sticks with us as well. So, Yoni, good to see you. I should put at the top, I am a contributing editor to the Atlantic. I will just put that out there and let folks decide whether that matters to them in this segment. But, Yoni, I think I just have been wanting to emphasize your case here is for the process. You're not necessarily making a case for impeachment and then expulsion. Explain why you think this process has to begin this way.
Yeah, I think that we often get impeachment wrong. We think of it as a guarantee of chaos, as sort of a nuclear option that should only be deployed if there's no other recourse. In fact, impeachment is the Constitution's remedy for the situation that we face right now as a nation. We're having this debate over Trump's fitness for office in the worst possible way. And by that, I mean unelected bureaucrats are disregarding the president's orders. Courts are striking down his actions. We are all the time as a nation debating this, but not using the mechanism that the Constitution lays out. And therefore, we're not getting all of the benefits that were intended to come from the process.
It was interesting to read Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor of The Atlantic, his letter in conjunction with your piece. It sounds like you're worried too many people are just going to react to the headline.
Well, I think every journalist worries about that. But more than that, I think that we wanted to move readers beyond thinking about impeachment as an outcome, right, whether or not the president should continue in office, and to get them thinking about it as a process, a mechanism for discernment and discovery, for moving the debate out of the streets, for diffusing the potential for political violence, and ultimately for adjudicating the claims against the president to see whether or not he is fit to continue.
So, Eddie, you're the academic at the table, and I say this because I think academics try to broaden the aperture. You try to widen the telescope here. What does history tell us about whether this is a good process or not? We've had 2 impeachments trials in this country. We believe it or not, Nixon was never part of that. Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton. What do you make of that?
There's a sense in which impeachment can be used or deployed to undermine the will of the voters. So there's always this underlying assumption that impeachment can be deployed as a kind of political gesture. So what would it mean if 33% or 39% or 40%, wherever he is, believes that opening up the process of impeachment is actually just a way for Democrats to undermine the will of the voters? So that's a concern. And we know that with Clinton, he came out of impeachment actually soaring because people saw this as a kind of politically tainted process. Now, one of the things I think that's really important about the article is that there's an assumption that, or let me say, there's the claim that's being made that what needs to happen is that the American people needs to see
it all.
Donald Trump being held accountable. Impeachment is one way to do that. But what about Congress doing its job, public hearings, oversight, judiciary?
Would you rather see that before the impeachment process?
It seems like that should be the first step.
Yoni, respond to that. That, impeachment, not yet. Go through the other process. What would you say to that?
Sure. Well, I think that there's a variety of investigations into the president, as your viewers know. Bob Mueller is looking at the president. The Southern District of New York is looking at his acts. I don't think this is a responsibility, though, that Congress can outsource. And the oversight hearings are not going to do it either. They can look into specific claims and episodes of potential misconduct. But what none of those committees is charged with doing, what none of them is empowered to do, is to consider the whole picture. And if ultimately the case that Congress is motivated by is a case that this president is not fulfilling his constitutional responsibilities, does not deserve and continue, you can't do that kaleidoscopically. You've got to assemble it into a coherent picture. There's no reason that you have to shut down other committees and their oversight investigations. They should forge ahead. But at the same time, you want Congress to be asking that question that is on the minds of many Americans and to put the debate out there in public so that the public can grapple with it.
All right. I know it's really tempting to get to our congressman here, but I almost want to make you the last. I want to wait here because Beth and I covered the last impeachment as reporters, and there's part of, I probably am guessing you may share this view, in that there's part of me that thinks that our political process isn't mature enough to do this. That what Yoni Yoni, you're correct in what should be and what we should be able to handle, but maybe maybe we have to force the public to have to come to grips with this.
Yeah, I mean, the last one in 1998 was entirely political. There was very little legal justification for what went forth, and that then tainted the whole concept of impeachment in the eyes of many voters, which, as Eddie said, prompted this huge outpouring of support for President Clinton. This is different, and I'm going to defer to our friend Congressman Coelho here to tell us what could be on their minds, but what Yoni's laid out and what many others have laid out is a very broad scope of wrongdoing by President Trump, potential wrongdoing, both of defying, the constitutional prerogatives that he swore to uphold, the violation of the emoluments clause, perhaps the sense that his family is making money off of his presidency. There's a huge range of things that the Congress could look into that is far beyond the scope of anything that Bill Clinton was ever accused of.
Carlos.
Chuck,
what do you say? What say you should the institution figure out how to handle this?
I think there's a natural order of events here, and most members of Congress want to see the Mueller report before even considering this or even beginning a pre-impeachment process.
Do they want that just for cover right now? Because they don't want to have to make if they can delay the decision and they have cover to do it, they want to delay it?
Well, I just think it's part of the natural political order. A lot of us in the last Congress demanded that this Mueller investigation be protected. Republicans and Democrats filed legislation to guarantee its protection. The American public has kind of been told implicitly, if not explicitly, that this is what we all have to wait for. So I think to proceed now with a pre-impeachment process, which is what this kind of sounds like, would be a mistake. And for those who are the president's opponents, I think it may actually end up benefiting him.
Yoni, let me give you the last word here before I wrap it up, which is this. Can an argument be made that, ultimately, the sooner we go through this process, the better for everybody? Is that a argument, and I'll be curious, Carlos, if you think, is that an argument, do you think, that actually could be accepted by the president and some congressional Republicans?
I think so. Two sitting vice presidents of the United States actually asked the House of Representatives to start impeachment proceedings against them because they wanted to clear their names, and they saw in a rule-bound process the best chance of doing that. This is a process that has a chance to actually lay the facts out before the public and to make things a lot clearer. There's no reason to wait for Robert Mueller. In the Nixon investigation, the special prosecutor forged ahead with his own investigation of Nixon simultaneous with the House investigation, and the same thing can and should happen here.
Yoni Applebaum, it's quite a provocative cover. Impeach, I think, is it 4 or 5? Is that the largest letter you guys have put on the Atlantic ever? Have you figured that one out? All right, well, we got to get the historians on that one. We'll see what maybe Mark Twain put something longer on there. Anyway, Yoni Applebaum, thanks very much. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.